Hello, though. Welcome to the NYPDL Home Team. My name is Ariel Sura, and I am one of the onboarding and outreach directors for this ongoing school year. The premise of the NYPDL Home Team is to provide a place for debaters to be able to practice their debate skills, to learn more debates, to get additional support outside of their regular team, or to get any support if they don't have a team. Together we will work very similar to a team. We will create an environment very similar to a team. The only limitation that we will have, of course, is that we're going to be virtual. The good and the bonus, though, is that we can all be in our houses, we can all be comfortable, and of course, we can record these lectures and spread them for more people to learn about debates to be able to debate. Over the course of the next few weeks, we're going to go over the introductory premises of parliamentary debate, how to do the basics from creating an argument to refuting an argument to analyzing arguments within a round to show the judge why you win. All of the good stuff will be, of course, reviewed. Today, we're just going to introduce the parliamentary debate format. What that is, in that lecture is going to be taught by our awesome onboarding and outreach committee member, Moses. Do you want to take it away from here?
Hey everyone, I'm Moses. I'm currently a junior at Berkeley High School, all the way out in California, if you can believe it. And I'm also a member of the onboarding committee for the NYPDL. A little bit of my background: I'm currently the president, one of the co-presidents of Berkeley Speech and Debate. I have had a lot of experience with coaching. I've coached students from multiple different states and multiple different countries, and I am super excited to be working with all of you all throughout the course of this year to create a NYPDL home team. Um, cool. With introductions out of the way, should I go ahead and start with the lecture? All right, perfect. So this is an introduction to parliamentary debate. So again, parliamentary debate is the format of debate that we here at the NYPDL do, and that we will be preparing you for and competing in on the home team. Um, okay. First of all, why do debate? What are some reasons why this activity might be valuable? Um, there are a lot of reasons why debate is a super helpful thing to get into. Just a few of them are civic engagement, writing, education, active listening, critical thinking, logical analysis, being able to develop causal arguments, being able to adapt, learning public speaking skills. These are all really incredible skills and tools that can debate can help you with, and has certainly helped me with. So there are a lot of very good reasons to do this activity. Um, in terms of the actual format of parliamentary debate, there are two teams. There are the government and the opposition. They can be abbreviated to just gov and op for the sake of clarity. And they are also sometimes referred to as the affirmative and the negation. There are teams of two people, so you will be debating with one other partner. They can either be someone from your school, someone else you met on the home team. It can basically just be any parliamentary debater, and you're going to be given a topic. So you'll be given sometimes it's called a motion, sometimes it's called a resolution. You'll be given a statement. It could be about anything, ranging from philosophy to politics to talking about holidays to talking about pop culture. It could really be on a huge host of topics. At the NYPDL, we really prioritize um, having a huge breadth of topics that we go over and learn about. Um, and the side government, the affirmation team or the gov team, will be trying to prove the statement false. Sorry, true. Will be proving the topic true, and the opposition will be proving it false, and they will have a debate. So again, each team has two people. You'll be debating with a partner, either from the home team or from your school. Um, there is the specific names for each for each person on the team is the leader and the member. So the leader does the first speech and the third speech. There are six speeches in parliamentary debate. The leader of any one team will do the first and the third speech for that team, and the member will do the second speech. Again, each side has three speeches, and by the end of those three speeches, you will have a judge deliberate to basically choose one team to win the round, to decide which team has proven the topic to be true or proven the topic to be false. So those three speeches are ordered in kind of a counterintuitive way, but it'll make sense once you get used to it. So first there's the Prime Minister Constructive, or the PMC. That's the first government speech. So the first person on the team trying to prove that the topic is true is going to go up to the stage or unmute on Zoom, depending on whether or not the tournament is virtual or in person, and they're going to give a 7-minute speech to explain why they think the motion is true, lay out the arguments, which is called your case, lay out the arguments for the government team, and basically begin to present their case for why they believe their side of the given topic is correct. Um, Next comes the Leader of Opposition Constructive, which is abbreviated the LOC. This is where the first op speaker goes up. So the Leader of the Opposition will go up and they will have 8 minutes to rebut the previous speaker. So they will provide their arguments for why they believe that the topic is actually false, and they will rebut the arguments presented by the prime minister, by the first government speaker. So you've got two jobs in that speech, right? The first one is to explain what your arguments are, why you think the topic is false, and the second is to refute the arguments of the speaker the speaker before you. That's an 8-minute speech. That's an 8-minute speech. Next is the member of government. So the government team goes back up to basically defend their case, defend their arguments, but it's the second speaker. So remember, you have two people on a team. The first one has gone up. Uh, then the first opposition speaker goes up. Then the second government speaker goes up. They deliver an 8-minute speech about where they provide refutations to all of the arguments that the opposition has provided. Then it's the member of opposition's turn. So again, the second speaker for the opposition team will go up there and they will basically rebut all of the government arguments and continue to strengthen their case as to why they believe that the topic is false. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. So the next speech is called the Leader of Opposition Rebuttal. And this is a speech given again by the first opposition speaker. So remember, we just had the second opposition speaker go up to give the Emma, or the member of opposition constructive, and now the leader of the opposition is going back up to deliver a 4-minute speech called a rebuttal. And rebuttal is kind of a confusing name for it because you're not actually really rebutting your opponent's arguments. All of that refutation has happened in the prior four speeches. Instead, what you were doing is providing sort of a general summary of the round and of all of the arguments that each side presented, and you're explaining to the judge why ultimately you win the debate, why the topic has been successfully proven false, and why your side of the topic, the opposition side, is correct. After that, the prime minister goes up. So again, that first government speaker to deliver a 5-minute rebuttal speech. So they're doing the same thing that opposition did. They have 1 extra minute to do it, and they're sort of summarizing the round, summarizing the arguments and explaining why they believe that they win. Sorry, 1 second. Additionally, in the NYPDL League, every speech has 30 seconds grace period. So in the event that you go over your 8 minutes, you have another 30 seconds to wrap up your thoughts. And the leader of the government is called the prime minister. So that can get a little bit of confusing. But basically, the first government speaker is the prime minister. The second government speaker is the member of government. The first opposition speaker is the leader of opposition. And the second opposition speaker is the member of the opposition. It's basically based off of actual roles in Parliament because this format was designed based off of the actual parliamentary debates that happen in the British or Canadian Parliament. Cool. Um, Now we're gonna play a memory game. I think it's just you, but if you so you can decide not to do this. But if you want, you can scan that QR code. Let me know when you have, and I'll put the things back up, and you can see because I know that was a lot. You can see if you can match all of the different speaking roles to what they're called. Would you be interested in doing that, or do you want us to move on?
I think we could move on. Thank
Okay,
you.
cool. Um, okay, so let's talk about the round structure. So again, that first speech is the Prime Minister constructive. They establish framing of the round and they introduce the affirmative or the government case. So they basically provide all relevant context or information, and they explain why the affirmation, uh, why the affirmation, their arguments for why the affirmative side of the topic is true. Then the leader of the opposition goes up. They deliver the first opposition speech. They either confirm or refute the framing of the round, the framing that was given to sort of contextualize what you're talking about in the debate. Then they introduce their case and they refute the government case. So they introduce their arguments for why they believe that the topic is true, or sorry, false, and then they refute the government team's arguments for why the topic is true. Cool. After those two speeches, we have the member speeches. So the member of the government goes up. Uh, they're going to give the second government speech. It'll be 8 minutes, and their most important job is to refute the opposition case. So refute the arguments that opposition brought up in their speech, and then they're going to reinforce the government case. So they're essentially going to defend and reiterate the arguments that they made in their first speech, and try and sort of carry them through, and explain why they are still standing even after the first opposition speech. Next is the member of opposition constructive. So the second opposition speaker goes up. Um, they give what is considered the first half of the op block. So basically, because there are the two opposition speeches back to back, the MO and the LOR, the second op speech and then the opposition rebuttal, are called the op block because it's this block of two opposition speeches. The member of the opposition will refute the government case again. They will reinforce the opposition case, so defend the arguments that they have made, and then they might introduce weighing or sort of crystallize important points in the round. So in this speech, it's less important to like directly refute every single argument, every single thing that the previous speaker said, and you kind of want to begin to sort of generally frame the round, and crystallize the debate so you can explain why your team wins. After that is the rebuttals. So it switches alternating at this point, and then the leader of the opposition actually goes up again. They give the third opposition speech, which is also the second half of the opposition block. They crystallize the round. They explain all of the important different clashes that have happened, all of the important arguments that were brought up, why they believe they are winning, all of the important arguments. They will establish their voter issues, which is basically a fancy name for the points that they think are really important in the round and prove why they are correct and why the topic is false. And they will establish weighing. So they might compare different arguments made by each team and weigh them against each other to explain to whoever's judging the round why one of them has more weight and why ultimately the opposition would win the round. Then the prime minister, who again was the first speaker who went up, will go back up, give the third government speech. They will refute any new arguments made from the member of opposition. That's less important, and we'll get more into that later if we need to. And then again, they do the same thing the opposition did. They crystallize the round, they establish government voter issues, I should say government, and they establish weighing. An important note for rebuttals is that new logic is not allowed. So the main theme is crystallizing the round and showing why your side wins. You're not allowed to like bring up totally new arguments in the last two speeches. The only exception to this is that the third government speech can respond to any new points made by the member of opposition. Cool. How much of this is making sense so far? Do we kind of have a general hold on this? And we'll watch around later, which will help us sort of like fully understand everything we're talking about here. But does that generally make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right. Um, the last sort of bit of rules that we need to talk about is interjections. So there are three different ways you can basically interrupt your opponent's speech to ask them a question. And they all serve very, very different purposes in the debate. The first one is called a point of information. You ask a 15-second question without pausing the time, without pausing the 8 minutes that the speaker has. And the goal is to ask a question that kind of pokes a hole in the opposing side's case. So you're kind of poking and prodding at the different arguments that your opponent made, with some kind of like an argumentative question or a question that's framed in a kind of like argumentative way, in order to hopefully catch your opponents off guard and uh, basically defeat their arguments. Now, the important thing here is that a debater can choose to accept or reject a point of information. So let's say I'm in a debate round and I want to ask a point of information, and I'm not the one speaking. I can raise my hand and say POI or point of information, and the speaker who's currently speaking can either say, sure, I'll take it, or no, I don't want to take it right now, or they can say, I'll take it later. So it is the choice of the this isn't true about the next 2 points we'll talk about, but it is the choice of the speaking team to decide whether or not they want to take a point of information. Now, point of clarifications are different. Point of clarifications are actual clarifying questions. So if you genuinely don't understand something that your opponent is saying, like let's say you missed the last thing they said, or you need them to like explain what they're talking about a little clearer, or you just like have any genuine like actual clarifying question, you could raise your hand and say point of clarification. Um, Time is paused, so the time of the speaker's speech doesn't resume until the question and answer is over, and they have to take it. So I can't reject your point of clarification. I would have to respond to you, and clarify whatever is confusing you. So this is less of a tool of argument and more just a way to make sure that everyone is on the same page throughout the debate. And the final one is a point of order. Um, it is not really a question. It is a basically a call you can use to address if you think a rule is being broken in the debate. Time stops and the speaker has to accept it. Um, the vast majority of cases where this is used is in rebuttal speeches when one side believes that the side that is currently giving a rebuttal is actually introducing new logic or new reasoning or new arguments, which, if you remember, you're allowed to do in rebuttals. Those are the three main sort of interjections you can do during your opponent's speech in parliamentary debate. Cool. Do we have any questions on the general format of parliamentary debate? Or
No, you've been giving really good clarifications and explanations.
okay, perfect. Thanks. In that case, that's the overview of parliamentary debate. That's the kind of debate that we will be doing with the home team, that we will be teaching all of you to do throughout the year, and that you will be doing when you compete in tournaments. Um, uh, and parliamentary debate is super fun. Some of this might be confusing for now, but I promise it becomes super intuitive once you get into it, and it allows us to have some really interesting and thoughtful conversations and debates about a huge host of topics. Okay. What we're gonna get into now is we're gonna get into our first lesson where so basically throughout home team we're gonna be doing a set of lessons that teach you different parts of how to get good at parliamentary debate, how to compete well, basically how to debate. The first of those lessons, what we're gonna be doing today, is about flowing. So what is flowing? Flowing in the context of debate is is the word we use for a specific note-taking method that debaters use when they're debating. So the goal of flowing is to track all the arguments as they flow through a round, right? It would be very hard for me to debate if I just had to remember everything my opponents are saying, right? So you will have either a piece of paper or a laptop that you're taking notes on, and you will just be generally writing down the most important things that your opponents are saying, and what your arguments are. What their arguments are. There are a few different ways to do this. It can be done vertically or horizontally. So you could be on like a sheet of paper writing down arguments, going down the sheet of paper, or you could be on like a Google spreadsheet where you have one column for the first government speech and another column for the first opposition speech. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but the most important thing is that you are taking notes to remember and understand all of the arguments that are being made throughout the round. It is really important that flowing is done properly and well. A bad flow is often the cause for a bad round. If you don't really understand the way that all of the different things that have been said in the debate interact with each other and connect, and you don't really like remember everything important that your opponent said, it's going to be really hard for you to give a persuasive speech, which is why flowing is super duper important. Okay, we have a video here which will kind of explain the basics of how to flow. Hold on, quickly. Is the audio fine on that? It's a little quiet on my end, but can you hear that fine?
The audio isn't on for me. I can't hear the video.
Interesting. Hold on, let me. You still can't hear it?
I can hear it now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm gonna start over. And let me know if there's any problems with that technically. Okay, awesome. Did that generally make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, cool. And like I said, like the presentation said, there are a lot of different ways to flow. Personally, like when I flow with I actually flow with 3 sheets of paper, and maybe I'll have like uh all of the government case on paper and all of the opposition case on another paper. There are a lot of different ways to do it. But what the example we saw in this video is a super good model for how to make that happen. Cool. I think I'm gonna skip over this part. Um, Really quickly, just on like what are some qualities of good flowing and bad flowing. Bad flowing uses full words and sentences. It reuses previously made arguments, and it's disorganized and messy. So basically, when you are flowing, you don't want to flow every single word the speaker is saying, right? That won't get you anywhere because no one can write as fast as they can talk. That just isn't going to help you, right? What you want to do is you want to flow the very key things that your opponent is saying, and you want to like basically flow in any kind of shorthand or any way that helps you where you can write down ideas pretty fast without like writing out the full sentence. So we can go back to that example in the video with the topic about building a wall between the US and Mexico. If the argument that the government team makes is that we need to build a wall in between the United States and Mexico to prevent drug smuggling and all of the illegal activities that happen across the southern border. Instead of flowing all of that, you might flow um, stop stop flow of drugs or whatever, or stop criminal activities, right? You generally just want you want just enough words that you understand what the argument is and you know how to respond to it. So again, good flowing will use shorthand words and shorthand sentences. It will use symbols and abbreviations for arguments that like you've already made to reuse them. For example, in my flows, if a debater is making an argument about climate change, I might just write out CC instead of writing out their full argument about climate change again. And it is organized and legible because if you can't read what you wrote, there isn't really much point to writing it in the first place. Okay, cool. Um, that's the extent of the lecture. What we're gonna do now, is I'm gonna play a hold on first. I'll stop recording the lecture first. One sec.